All right, Rob Van Zant, IFBB Pro, Classic Physique, Rob Van Zant, USA winner. And you turned pro. Good. You turned pro in 2021.
That's correct. Last year, yeah.
All right, go ahead. What show was it?
So 2021 USA's. It was hosted in Phoenix, Arizona last year. Arizona Grand Spa Resort. Typically done in Las Vegas, but of course, with how things have been the last couple of years, relocation, reschedule. So, yeah, it was.
It's surreal, right?
The experience by itself would be enough to call it surreal, but it was so many things outside of that, and then during the day as well. Which out of context may just kind of sound perhaps like a little like generic, but as we go into it and I give you more background information and just things lining up, like it really was like this wonderful like a culmination to the experience and to the day. But yeah, we can start off with calling it surreal.
Yeah, and the USA used to be that you had to win the whole thing to turn pro. So now they do with like the nationals, right? Where you have to win your class.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. It's even to the point where top two qualify for pro league.
Okay. I see. And you won your class, right? And what class was it? I know it was
Class C.
Which is what?
Rather small limit actually. So I believe it's from 5'11", or rather over 5'11" to 6 foot. I'm 5'11" and 3/4, so I just made that cutoff. And then my weight limit was 212.
Okay, right. There's a weight limit because they want to keep the guys smaller than the bodybuilders. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, it's proportionate.
Oddly enough, I don't know a lot about classic physique. I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding, but I don't know how the categories work in classic physique. But the USA is a really, really great show, and it has a lot of notoriety and a lot of great winners in the past. So where are you from?
So Monroe, New York, upstate. Orange County area. If you're familiar with like the Woodbury Commons, perhaps.
Sure.
I'm within like maybe 20 minutes of that.
Okay, cool. And you're doing the Toronto Pro?
That's correct. Yeah.
When is the Toronto Pro?
It's actually 3 weeks from today's date. It's June 5th. It's at the Delta Hotel Center, Toronto Airport.
And what made you pick Toronto? Because you had the New York Pro, which is right in your backyard. Next week, actually.
Yeah. So truth be told, when I got together with Vinnie earlier, my coach, we were looking at a show in July. There's the Linda Murray Atlanta Pro. I believe it was July 16th of this year. We were looking things over when we got together, and safe to say, from head to toe, I just needed a lot of work. I don't like to rush this stuff, Vinny, take it very, very slow, simple, controlled. Every 4 weeks we do a check-in, and every 4 weeks was just that much better. Funny enough, last time I saw him, he asked if I wanted to jump into the New York Pro.
Okay.
But I offered just let's take 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
Things are going very well. We're already, I believe, like 6 weeks ahead of schedule since, again, our original plan was mid-July. The Toronto Pro is certainly more appealing than the New York Pro. The New York Pro is, of course, this big, prestigious show. You can never say otherwise. But the amount of boxes that this is going to check off for me, for years, I've always wanted to travel. Like if I ever turn pro, I wanted to travel, do international shows, explore that, just really take advantage of this opportunity. So when I brought up Toronto Pro and he went for it, it was like, again, all these boxes just getting checked. It's the biggest pro show in Canada.
Right.
It'll be my debut there. I get to travel. It's just going to be like this fantasy I've always had that I can finally execute on. Like I can finally do this stuff. Like next year, God willing, I'll be going to Romania.
Right.
Because I can.
Yeah, it's the benefits of being a pro athlete, a pro bodybuilder, especially. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's an opportunity that for a little while I didn't think I'd have, and now that it's here, like I have no excuse.
Yeah. So your trainer is Vinnie Galante, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I know him pretty well. He's been on my podcast. I think he came out twice. Yeah, two different times. And he's been around forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. This is only our third season together, but
Right.
it's like what he's been able to clear up for me
Yeah.
is like invaluable. Like you can't put a price in that. Like,
Mhm.
especially with my generation or the ones kind of coming up with how flashy and like complex and uh, glamorous and like social media appropriate everybody thinks these things have to be. What he does is so simple.
Yeah,
It's so
really.
simple.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. So I see these kids in the gym and they're trying to reinvent the wheel. And
Mhm.
if I because I'm like the old G in the gym too, like Vinny,
Yeah.
And if I see that they're doing something wrong or if they're gonna hurt themselves, especially like the young kids, 15, 16, I try to help them. And I'm like,
Mhm.
and the first thing I tell them is, don't overthink things, don't, and they, for the most part, they just basically follow like some podcast influencer who never did a contest, just got like a six-pack abs. And and he's like, oh yeah, but so and so said to do this. Well, I'm like, and I tell him, well, you're following the wrong people. You're following people that have accomplished nothing. It's great that they have a huge YouTube channel, but the guys that turn pro, the guys that train people, the guys that train the top pros, those are the guys you want to listen to. And Vinny Galante is one of those. So, when I was a kid, I grew up in Brooklyn, then I had moved to Staten Island. So when I was in Staten Island, I was in my 20s, and there were three guys that were local favorites.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was Jason Owens, Dave Palumbo, and one of them were Vinny Galante. I mean, you had all this. There was like Thackeray, and there was Robbie Lopez, but those were the three big names. Those are like, oh, these guys are going to turn pro. They're going to turn pro.
Yeah.
And two out of three did. And I'm sorry, Vinny was one of them. And he had this tremendous physique with this small waist and these sweeping quads, and everybody knew who he was. And if you came to your gym, it was like, oh shit, Vinny Galante's coming to the gym. He's going to train here, and then, and then he would shoot the shit with everybody. Just
Mhm.
he was almost like an icon back then. And now he's taking his knowledge and he's giving it to people like you. And you know, it's great that you realize how lucky you are to have him in your corner, because it's a sport where trainers are so disposable.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually make an excellent point about that. And again, to your point, with having Vinny of all people as my coach, I do believe that I'm very fortunate with this.
Mhm.
I don't know that I've really expressed that enough to him, just because I try to keep it, I guess, more professional, so to say.
He
Like,
knows he's not a stupid guy. You could tell the difference when somebody really
yeah,
appreciates it and when somebody takes advantage of it. He definitely knows. Good. Sorry.
yeah, I believe it. No, it's okay. I mean, I genuinely remember the first time I saw him at the gym.
Hmm.
It was at Powerhouse Mawa, where I currently train. It was, I think it opened like December of 2018, like just at the end of the year.
Hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, I was on like one of the cable towers and I was just kind of looking around, and then I just saw this guy who was just big, like
Yeah. Yeah.
stocky, the oversized t-shirt, walking in, the gym bag, the
Yeah.
calves, like everything like that. And I'm like, holy Christ, like this is a pro.
Yeah. You could tell
This
right
is a
away.
real guy.
Yeah. You could tell right away. The
Yeah,
oversized,
and
the
like,
oversized t-shirt, the oversized sweatshirt is such a pro it's such a 90s thing.
yeah,
Say everybody wants to like show off and and social media and whatnot. And back then it was like, you worked out in a sweatshirt or a big t-shirt if it was hot, and you didn't let anybody know what you look like back then until you got on stage, you know.
mhm.
But now it's like with social media influencers and Instagram, and they're always what these guys look like 2 months before the show starts,
Right.
So how old are you now?
I'll actually be 31 in just a couple weeks, the 21st. I
And
apologize. The 23rd, the 21st is
uh,
near pro.
that's all right. And do you do this? Are you going to be competing full time, or you have a full time job as well?
I do have a full-time job. I actually just recently acquired a new job, hospital security position.
Mm.
Um, White Plains Hospital, White Plains, New York, which is has been unbelievably welcoming and accommodating. The hospital is fantastic. Before that, and even currently, I still do part-time security at a local amusement park for kids. If you're familiar with like Goshen, New York, for example, there's a Legoland that was just built there, opened last year. Cheesy, fun, kids love it. You know, it's a silly environment, but that's what appeals to me.
So how many hours a week do you normally work?
Yesterday was my first day off in I think 18 days.
Yeah. So you're working anywhere between 40 and 60 hours a week on top of getting ready for a contest. And that says a lot about your work ethic, you know? Yeah, think about so many guys just compete for a living, or they'll do online trading or personal training. I have a good friend that I interviewed, and he's in California, and he does open bodybuilding. He's an amateur and hasn't turned pro yet, and he will. He's a monster. His name is Danny, and he was working full time, and he couldn't get past a certain weight. And he actually works with Milos actually. And he decided, oh, fuck it. If I'm going to do this, I'm doing this full time. That's it. And he quit his job. And now he's a full-time bodybuilder. And he said, because he's not working physically anymore, he put on like another 20 pounds of muscle. You know, but, you know, he's fortunate there. He does online training and so on and so forth. And he makes some money doing that. But he, you know, he's huge. I mean, he's almost 300 pounds, you know, like 5'9", 5'10". He's a monster. But, so were you always athletic, or you were always more into bodybuilding?
Pretty fair question. Not so much athletic. Like when I was in high school, you know, I joined the wrestling team. That was pretty much like my focus there. Afterwards, I got into jiu-jitsu for a little while, boxing, MMA training. Competitive sports I was interested in. I went to a small high school, so football wasn't an option. After school weightlifting was, which is kind of where I guess you could say like the roots for all this started. And it wasn't until I was 22 that I considered like actually stepping on stage and doing the bodybuilding thing, just to kind of recognize myself for like the hard work I put in the gym, you know, the transformation I went to. You know, when I was younger, I looked considerably different. So just to kind of get that acknowledgement, you know, for myself, and maybe just have somebody tell me I look good, was really the motivation for the first show. And that was in 2014, actually a NABLA competition down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
Yeah. Small, just kind of middle of nowhere thing. Just get your feet wet.
Right.
No pressure. Have fun. I took second in juniors, fourth in novice. And from there, it was like, I have to do this.
Yeah, you just fell in love
with this.
Yeah. That's a lot of guys' stories. A lot of guys that I've had on were athletes, football players, wrestlers, and they let me hit the weights to get better at that sport, and then they fall in love with the weights.
Yeah,
it happens a lot. So, how many shows did you do before you turned pro? Because you started in 2014, and then you turned pro in 2021, which is a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, 8 years. So from 2014 up until last year, I hit an average of let's say 2 shows a year. There was a year where I hit 1, year where I hit 4. Ultimately, I'd peg it around like the better side of 20 shows, including the USAs. And then in each show, you know, stepping on between classic physique. When I started filling out a little bit more, I got confident enough to try bodybuilding again, you know, after that came along. So yeah, it's been quite a ride with the amount of shows I've done. And actually last year, at the Atlantic States, which was the last time I stepped on stage as a bodybuilder before the USAs. One of the guys I met backstage, his name's Chaz. He's an up and coming classic physique guy. He's like, yeah, you've been doing this a while, haven't you? And it was kind of like a bittersweet moment, if I'm going to be honest. Because like, yeah, like I appreciate that acknowledgement, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I hope this pays off soon.
Yeah,
I don't know how much money I want to continue to invest in this.
It could be a hard realization. There's a lot of guys, let's say, a lot of guys like me who have to come to, because I competed too. And I just
Right.
had to come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to get any bigger. I'm not gonna turn pro. And there's a lot of guys like that. And you just got to come to the realization and you got to go, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my money, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a real realization. There's also a lot of guys lose and they have this just bad taste in their mouth and they go, I ain't fucking wasting my time anymore. And it's like, wait a minute. No. Keep going because you have what it takes. I wasn't one of those guys. I had a heart to heart with my wife, and I'm like, I'll give you an example, right? This is when I realized I'm done. So I did a couple of shows. I did like 4 shows, and I won every time I did a local show. I won. I won the Masters. I won one Open, right? And it was only bodybuilding. The last show I did was in 2014. That was the last year that they had only bodybuilding and physique. The following year, they came out with classic physique. So I never even thought about doing that, right?
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I won the Masters overall at the Brooklyn Grand Prix. I'm like, I think I'm going to do the Team Universe next year, right? That's what I'm thinking. And I'm actually looking for trainers and whatever. You know, I remember I went to go see Oscar Arden and I had to sit down with him and he was going to train me, all this crap, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go check out Team Universe and see what the guys look like. So I go, and that was the year John Meadows turned pro at the Team Universe. And that was my realization. I go, I'm never going to look like that. Never happening. I'm not going to look. There's no way. And I was already in my 30s. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to fucking look like that. And I just went home and I'm wasting my time here. But the good news is, I do things like this, which fills the gap of, the love of the bodybuilding and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
it keeps you involved in the industry,
Yeah.
especially being the host of your own channel. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
You're now a resource for us.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that because it's just a lot of work right now,
Yeah.
So, okay, you're doing the Toronto Pro. Give me an idea of what you think your future is going to be like. Are you going to stay with classic physique, or do you want to go into bodybuilding? Or
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Currently, yeah, I love classic. It's good for me right now, good for my size. At the new pro level, my weight limit's increased. So from 212 to 222. As of this morning, I'm 210 on the dot.
Okay.
So I like to think I could spend another 2 years easy in the division, just putting on more muscle, just gradually improving. Perhaps, in the next 5 years, depending on how things go, maybe take that leap to the open, just give it a shot, see what happens. But, quite honestly, with how unexpected things can go, I just kind of focusing year by year.
Right.
Give Vinnie's input on it. I've had a lot of feedback that I could look like a bodybuilder. I could look like a men's open guy, which I appreciate, right? Like that's wonderful. That's essentially telling me I could be a main event guy. But, realistically, I'm very happy with classic. I enjoy it. If I can just continue to mold myself into a classic guy, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
It's not saying like I wouldn't love to one day be like 250 walking around,
Yeah, like a
turning
monster.
heads like that.
Yeah.
It'd be incredible. It's just, maybe it's just not in the cards for me, and I'm certainly not going to complain about that. I'm happy now. I've accomplished this goal. I've earned my pro status. Everything after this point, I'm just going to take the opportunity for what it is and see how much further I can go with it.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm a huge bodybuilding fan, open 212. But the truth of the matter is, the younger generation, your generation, the generation before you, after you rather, they love classic physique, man.
Yeah.
Like if I go to the gym and the young guys, 15, 16, 17, if I, have a conversation with them, they have no idea who Phil Heath is or Big Ramy, but they know who's the classic physique Olympia guy.
Bumstead.
They know who Bumstead is every time. Oh, I know Chris, but so I think it's because it's a look that might seem a little bit more attainable.
Yeah,
but it really isn't. It really isn't. They think so, but and let's face it. The truth is, classic physique guys have a prettier physique. They do. They're lean. They're hard. They have small waists. They look athletic. Where pro bodybuilders, they're getting bigger and bigger and big. Did you see what Blessing looked like yesterday?
Yeah,
Holy shit. I mean,
yeah, phenomenal.
yeah, I mean, Charles Griffin looked amazing too, but
Yeah,
I really think that it was Blessing's width. I mean, from shoulder to shoulder, he's a huge human being.
yeah, and then how small his waist was too.
It's
Like his butt
unbelievable.
spread, for example,
Yeah.
was unbelievable. Like I was looking at the pictures from last year, like the New York Pro and the Indy Pro he competed, where he came in perhaps a little flat, and then the next week perhaps spilled over, and just to see what he's done in just a year's time is
In 1 year, yeah.
unreal. Like it's truly an accomplishment. So good for him. I'm sure he's feeling on top of the world right now.
Yeah, and he made the right decision last year. He's like, I gotta make some changes.
Mhm.
I better get a good coach. And he got one of the best in the world. He got George Farah.
That's right.
I'd love to know how much he pays him. I've heard crazy numbers of what Farah gets. I've heard 5,000 a show. I've heard crazy numbers. Yeah, but well, look what he
I
does.
got money for it, right?
Yeah, but he's well worth every penny. Look what he does. Look at the difference he made in Blessing, and the same thing with Henny Ramrod with Derek Lunsford. Did you see what he looked like at the Pittsburgh
Yeah,
Pro? Like,
yeah. He's like what, like
Jesus
260?
Christ.
I think I heard. 260.
Yeah, and he's a 212 guy. I'm like, how is this guy going to get down to 212? And he's enormous and in shape. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Quads, everything.
the
Yeah,
old school guys, love to shit on the new generations. But the truth of the matter is I'm 46, so I'm an old school guy. But the truth of the matter is the new guy, you can't touch them. These guys are just so big, so hard, and so symmetrical. I mean, they dwarf. Maybe the only guy probably back in the day that could probably stand next to today's guys was probably like Ronnie and I forgot the German guy's name.
Marcus.
Marcus Rule.
Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus Rule, because back then, if you were 300 pounds on your off season, it was like a big deal. Like,
Right.
oh
So,
shit, Ronnie's over 300. It was like, wow. Now they're all over 300.
yeah, it's kind of like a dime a dozen now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, unreal. So, how's your diet going? And are you one of those guys that have to do no carbs? Are you able to take in carbohydrates?
So I'm very fortunate to say I don't have to go zero carb. We run low carbs, which is a total of 150 weighed grams a day. So 50 grams for 3 meals. The diet, again, there's nothing really to it. Vinnie just keeps it simple. It's chicken twice a day, steak, protein powder, cream of rice, white rice, potato, just in that combination, throw it together how I will. It works, it's enough to keep me excited. This year is actually the first year I've incorporated red meat into my plan. Previously, it's always been a lot of fish, tilapia, tuna, salmon. And I can't even explain how much more exciting it is when you're eating chicken and steak as opposed to just white fish and white fish and white fish.
And how much cardio do you do?
So we're at 20 minutes 4 times a week. We just take cardio off for leg days. Incline 10. Just kind of keep it simple.
Yeah, when you were able to get in shape like that, you're destined to be an athlete. Because you realize how much more difficult it is for the guys that like have to do no carbs and do an hour or 2 hours of cardio every day to get in shape. And then you have somebody like you who's genetically gifted, where it's like, no, I don't have to do that. Because I interviewed Charles Griffin, and he was the same way. He's like, no, he gave me his whole diet. And I'm like, it's a lot of food. And I'm like, how much cardio do you do? And he just did the same thing, 20 minutes. I'm like, son of a bitch. I used to do an hour of cardio. I used to have to rotate my carbohydrates. I get carbs like twice a week if I was lucky. It's like shit. And I would be fucking miserable, miserable. But yeah, that's how you're a gifted athlete, is when you could get in shape like that, and plus you have youth on your side too. I mean, you're still a very young man. So
Thank you.
Toronto Pro, if you do well there, are you going to continue to do another show, or are you going to try to qualify for the Olympia and that's it?
So of course, no way to predict how I'm going to do. I mean, if your interview with Charles Griffin has anything to say about it, maybe I'll be top two.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Walk on
Yeah,
stage, and there you go.
yeah, right.
So, I have no unrealistic expectations with this. I just want to go to Toronto, have fun, look like a pro in my pro debut. Pretty much regardless of what happens, I'm looking at Toronto at this moment.
Hmm.
I apologize, Tampa. First
Okay.
weekend of August, and actually, Vinnie will be competing in the Masters division.
Oh, that's perfect.
So that's kind of like a fun
Yeah.
box check, like here we go, to be cheesy about it, like Master and Apprentice going to the same show.
Yeah, right.
That would be that'd be just like a fun thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's good that you're taking advantage of the fact that it's an experience and it's fun. Because when you're so invested in winning,
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes the fun out,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
things might change as you get better and you have endorsements and you're like, wait a minute, I should have won that show. Or maybe you wanted to win and somebody shows up and so on and so forth. And, it takes the fun out a little bit, Charles Griffin said on his Instagram yesterday that he said, I was really disappointed. I was looking for the win. He's probably kicking himself right now, but it was no fault of his own. He looked amazing. It's just Blessing showed up and blew everybody away. And it was like, nobody knew he was going to look like that, and otherwise he would have won. The fact that you're enjoying it and enjoying the ride, hopefully that continues for the rest of your bodybuilding career. Because do you have kids? Are you married or anything like that?
No.
Yeah, that's what happens. Like a lot of these guys that get married, they have kids, and this is what they do for a living. And it's kind of like just becomes going to work. I got to fucking diet. I got to get bigger. I gotta win a show. I got to get my endorsements. Because they have a family to feed and so on and so forth. And it takes the fun out a little bit. And not that I know firsthand. I just know from interviewing these guys.
Yeah, of course.
So it's fantastic when you see a young guy, a young local guy that's enjoying the ride and doing so well. It really is. I like seeing the local guys do well, and the fact that you're so humble about it too, that says a lot about a person. There's a couple of guys that I've met that were either just turned pro like yourself or were top amateurs, and they're not humble. They have these rotten attitudes. And it's really, you realize that, in your head, you're saying to yourself, you realize that, you have this gift. You could make a living by doing something that people admire so much. I'm a huge fan, and they just, some of them are such assholes. But when you have a guy that's very humble and enjoys it and realizes what a gift it is, it makes my job easier, if that makes sense. It makes me enjoy interviewing guys like you.
Okay. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And again, I appreciate that. It's
because I've interviewed I've interviewed a couple of bodybuilders, and at the end of the interview, I'm like, this guy's a dick. I'm like this.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's and it actually made me less of a fan of that person once you know what they're really like. And it's like, this guy's a fucking dick. But, but the large majority of the guys that I've had, and the girls, because I've had a lot of women bodybuilders, they're very helpful.
Right.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know so-and-so. If you want to try and get him on the show, I'll contact him for you, and so on and so forth. So, I would say 85-90% of the people are great people. Then you have the shitheads. It happens. So listen, man, I'm going to wish you the best of luck. The Toronto Pro is always a great show. A lot of big names that won. Fuad Abiad. I think even Sean Clarito won the 212 class there once before. And like you said, it's the biggest show in Canada. And you're a blessed man, and it's fantastic that you appreciate it and you understand it, and you're a gifted athlete. And so listen, bro, best of luck to you. Much love, much respect. And when you win the Toronto Pro or you win the next show, you come back and we'll talk about the experience of winning your first pro show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Couldn't even put into words, I'm going to be honest with you. Not even.
Yeah, man, I envy you. I miss going on stage, but at the same time, I don't miss no carbs.
No, no, trust me. I'm counting the days, man. As excited I am to celebrate this show, I'm excited to celebrate eating again. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
work.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Listen, man, good luck to you, and
Appreciate it.
we'll definitely keep in touch. And I'll have my eye on the Toronto Pro and see how you do.
Of course.
And we'll definitely keep in touch. And like I said, your first win or your first top five, you come back and we'll talk about it again.
Beautiful. Sounds like a plan, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, brother. Have a good day. All right, man.
You too. Thank you.
All right, man. We'll talk.
Later.